Hey, friends, thank you for joining me, whether you are here live or joining me on the replay. And I apologize that my froggy throat just seems to be an ongoing thing. We are here today to talk about how to get more done by doing less. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably low key obsessed with productivity. But for most of us, being more productive does not actually mean doing more. As a matter of fact, it means doing less. And not indiscriminately less, but doing less by eliminating things that you shouldn't be doing at all. You don't know why you're doing. They could be done by someone else. They could be done at a later time. They could be done by a piece of tech instead of you as a human being. They may not be the right things for you to be focusing on at the stage of business you're at, and so much more. FOMO is real, and we are all experiencing a massive amount of FOMO as small business owners. You might see someone using a particular technique, a particular marketing strategy. You might see them offering a particular product, program, or service and think, wow, that would work for me too. I should totally do that. And next thing you know, you're adding a whole bunch of items on your to-do list. Or if you're like me, you may have the tendency to fall in love with every shiny new piece of technology. Right now, it's AI, it's ChatGPT, it's all the different ways that artificial intelligence is promising to make my life easier, to make my business easier. But every single one of these new things that promises us to make our life easier, to make our business easier, has a learning curve, right? Every single one of these platforms has a learning curve, has an expense. You might need to pay someone else to set it up for you, or you're going to have to invest your time and energy in setting it up for yourself. So even if it saves you time in the long run, you may invest a lot of time and energy and effort in the short run, only to find out it's actually not the right program for you. So I don't want to discourage you any more than you might already be, but something I've learned about productivity in my own business is that at any given time, probably half the things that would just automatically find their way on my to-do list should not be there. They either shouldn't be there because they are associated with something that really isn't aligned with my business goals. They may show up on my to-do list, but they're really not aligned with my personal values. They may show up on my to-do list because of FOMO, because I had the perception that everyone is using them and I need to be using them too. But over time, that's really not a good enough reason. Sometimes we grab onto something because someone we admire recommends it. In fact, it might even be someone that we are paying and working with who recommends it. But it might be perfect for them and not right for us. So, with all the things that we need to learn as a small business owner, all the hats that we need to wear, it can be incredibly easy to put yourself on the steep end of multiple learning curves because you have a small business, you have to learn how to market, you have to learn how to sell, you have to learn how to create visibility, you have to learn branding, you have to learn content creation, you have to learn how to package up your services, how to price them correct. I mean, if you're not getting stressed out already, you're probably already in burnout. There's a lot of things to learn. And I have made all the mistakes and continue to make many. But one thing I will say I've definitely gotten better at is deciding what to put on my plate from the beginning. Because I've learned from considerable, painful, expensive experience that once something's on my plate, I'm going to feel compelled to keep it there. And I'm going to feel compelled to rationalize and justify why it's there to begin with. Meaning, I'm like in a buffet. Ooh, this looks good. That looks good. Ooh, I don't want to miss that. Ooh, I don't even know if I like that, but I better find out for sure. Pile, 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 pile. Now I got all this stuff. I'm not a wasteful person. So even by the time I get to my table and I realize this is way too much, I'm going to be sick if I eat all this. What am I going to do? I'm not going to throw it away. So I'm probably going to try to eat it, maybe even all of it. And using that analogy for how we run our business, it's perfectly obvious that we need to get better at deciding what goes on our plate, our to-do list, to begin with. Because once it's there, we're either going to do it, which is the least likely outcome, or it's going to stay on there and we're going to procrastinate on it. And we can keep telling ourselves we're going to do it later. And maybe we will. But the best we can hope for is to feel relief that we finally did it. But what's more likely to happen is we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it now. We're not going to do it later. But we're not going to take it off the list. We're going to maintain it on the list. And every time we refresh the list, it's just going to sit there. And if you're anything like me, that's going to be an energetic drain. That's going to be a shame trigger. And that's going to become part of the pile of evidence that you don't know what you're doing as a business owner. I have seen this time and time and time again, especially if you are a little bit impulsive when it comes to trying new things. Now, there is nothing wrong with trying new things. I freaking love it. But if you're the kind of person that once you've tried something new, you would feel guilty if you didn't try to make it work, try to leverage it, try to optimize it. And I use these words too. So in a way, I'm kind of making fun of myself. Once something's on our to-do list, if we have this personality trait of doubling down to try to make it happen, to try to force ourselves to get it done, that is a source of so much friction and so much stress and strain in your business that is absolutely worthy of getting rid of. Because the truth is, all of us have a limited bandwidth. Right now, I'm obviously speaking beyond the bandwidth of my voice right now, right? So I'm doing it right now. I'm exceeding my own bandwidth. I'm forcing myself to do something that's beyond my current capacity. Now I'm going to justify it because it's important to me to maintain the consistency of these weekly lives. I will call it short. I will cut this one short because while this isn't painful, it's not very pleasant to listen to, I'm sure. So thank you for sticking with me. I believe the most efficient and effective and sustainable way to be more productive, to get more done by doing less, is to be really good at making decisions about what you commit to. I think if we considered every decision we make to be a commitment instead of an experiment, that's not going to work for everybody. But for some people, thinking, am I willing and able to commit to this? Meaning long term? Maybe not. But we don't usually think of things as a commitment. We usually think of it as, I'm going to give this a try. I can't tell you how many people have started a business with that very thought. Well, I lost my job. I left my job. My job was eliminated. We moved, whatever. So rather than look for another job, I'm just going to start a business and see what happens. I'm going to give it a shot. I suppose there are a handful of people out there in the universe who now have a successful entrepreneurial business who just started by giving it a shot. There probably are. But there are a lot more successful business owners who made a commitment. Because when you commit to something, you make it inevitable. It's a non-negotiable. You're not faffing around. You're not changing your mind. It's not an experiment. So this would help me by thinking if I do this, it's a commitment as opposed to an experiment. This has been helpful to me in not signing up for so many freebies, not signing up to be on so many email lists, not signing up for so many low-cost programs that I don't actually need and probably won't use. Getting better at making decisions about what I commit to means that if something's on my to-do list, it's going to get done. It's not a suggestion. It's not a hope list. It's a list of things that I've committed to doing. In other words, taking myself more seriously, taking the reality that I have a limited bandwidth, as do we all, that there's so many hours in the day and I can't make more of them, that I have a team of a certain size and not a much bigger team, in a way forces me to use intentional constraint, to make better decisions, to be less impulsive. Hey, I can be hella impulsive in other areas of my life. In my business life, it hurts me. It hurts me to scratch every itch. It hurts me to jump on every bandwagon. It hurts me to drink every flavor of Kool-Aid. It really does. Because it spreads my energy, my attention, my focus, my effort over too many different result areas. So I don't make a lot of progress in any of them. I'm literally chasing too many different outcomes to achieve any of them. And bringing that down to the level of the to-do list, every single one of those outcomes I'm chasing has tasks, has objectives, has individual items that need to be accomplished. So it stands to reason, unless I've hired a lot of help, unless I have the budget to hire a lot of help, unless I have a lot of people working for me who are taking care of those tasks, who are checking off those objectives, who are reaching those milestones, and who are accomplishing those results, it's all on me. I can't tell you how many people I have worked with over the last number of years whose to-do list never gets to done. It keeps getting added to. There's very little subtraction. And I've never met a person who's experiencing that doesn't feel terrible about it. And who also has a really hard time letting go of it. Now, some of my clients do really, really well with the Eisenhower Matrix. If you're not familiar with it, the Eisenhower Matrix has 4 quadrants: important, urgent, important, non-urgent, not important, urgent, and not important, non-urgent. And so everything on the to-do list gets allocated to one of those quadrants, which in terms of practical language, it's do, delete, delegate, and defer. Sounds super simple, and it can be if that's how your brain works. But for many of the people that I work with who tend to be neurospicy like me, they have a much harder time identifying what is actually important from what feels important, and from what is actually urgent from what feels urgent. In fact, a lot of folks with ADHD experience everything on their to-do list as both urgent and important across the board. Think about this. If you've got anywhere from 10 to 100 items on your to-do list, and they all feel equally important and urgent to you, how do you prioritize? How do you know where to start? How do you know when you've done enough for the day and you need to step away? How do you know where to pick up the next day? How do you reward yourself when you have completed a task partially, but not fully? And what about when you're going through that list, you realize that the to-do list item actually needs to be broken down into several smaller tasks? Well, there's no way to win with this. There's no way to feel productive. There's no way to get to the end of your to-do list. There's no way to actually reach your goals if this is your daily scenario. Too many things on the list. They all seem urgent and important. You don't know how to prioritize them. So what tends to happen is that you procrastinate because you don't know where to start. You don't know how to prioritize. Once you get started somehow or other, you apply perfectionistic standards because you feel so inadequate based on how many items are on that list and you're not checking them off. And what's most likely to get your attention is the thing or things that someone else is waiting for or has paid you for, which feels very much like a job and rather than your own business. So for me, and for the people that I'm trying to help, figuring out a decision matrix for what you commit to, what gets on your list, and therefore deserves your attention, that's the most transformational thing you can do. That's the way to be truly productive. Because if something's on your list, it belongs there. You know why it's there. You know what priority it holds. You know when it's done. And you actually have a genuine shot at finishing it. That is such a worthy outcome and is so much preferable to the never-ending story of the never-ending to-do list, which never really gets totally done anyway, exhausts you in the process, may very well catapult you into burnout, and never really makes you feel like you know what you're doing and you're in charge of your own show. That is a preventable situation. Not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be able to like snap out of it, but you can create a decision matrix, not the Eisenhower matrix. You can create a decision matrix for determining what to actually commit to, know why you're committing to it, know what its level of priority is, how much attention and time it needs from you, when it needs to be done, and what you're going to do to celebrate when it is. So this is one of the things I do with my clients in the Boss Up Breakthrough. And at the time of this recording, it is the summer of 2023. I tend to work with people in 12-week engagements, one-on-one. But for this summer, you can work with me for a much smaller commitment. This summer, I have a choose your own adventure offer, which can be as little as a VIP day, 1 day, or as long as a 4-week intensive. So if you know this is something you need to address, can you imagine spending a day learning how to make better decisions for your business that will allow you to get more done by doing less? If that sounds like exactly what you need and you'd like me to be your guide, reach out to me on LinkedIn at Coach Diane Wingard. I would love to help you figure this out and make it work for you. That's all for now. Thanks for dealing with my scratchy throat, and I will see you next week when I'll be talking about getting off the hamster wheel of corporate life to create a business that is aligned with you, your strengths, your gifts, your values, and allows you to serve people in the most authentic way possible. I'll see you then.